Good morning. This is Talking Devils, your favourite Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by Manchester United legend Paul Parker. Good morning, Paul. How are you doing?
Good morning, Wayne. I'm not too bad, mate. I'm feeling a little bit worse. Where I should say I had maybe one of my longest Saturdays.
Right. What did you get up to?
First of all, I was at Tottenham,
Yeah.
and then later in the day it was Chelsea v Wolves.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Still recovering from that.
What the Chelsea Wolves?
I mean, from the Saturday, from the long day.
From the set, yeah. It's just, and then yesterday was a grandchildren day, so you just you don't really chill when you come home and you're still you're like a zombie and you don't sleep properly, and then you decide that you're still going to go to the gym on a Monday morning and wish you hadn't.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Mm.
Got to be done though. You creep up to our age, Paul, and I'm all right. It's all right if I put us in the same age bracket. I'm sure you won't mind that. Anything over 30. Yeah, we've got to do it to oil the bones, keep them moving. But yeah, long day for you on Saturday then. I don't
Yeah,
like
very
going to
very long.
one game at Old Trafford that's 10 minutes down the road. Do you know what I mean? It turns into a full day affair. So doing two in London, no, not for me. Yeah. Good. I suppose they're decent games to go to as well, especially the first one. We'll get to that in a minute. No Dave this week. Dave's not in Hong Kong, but he is recovering from his jet lag. And he's bless him, all that travel yesterday. What a soldier that he is. Like normally comes on the podcast when he's battling such things, but he's tired. He's very tired. So he's in bed. We'll go through the news before we talk about the events of Saturday. So rumours this morning: United are in the market for a central midfielder. Not a surprise, but the two names that are mentioned, or three names really: Conor Gallagher of Chelsea, of Atletico Madrid, formerly of Chelsea, of course. Angelo Stiller, the midfielder that came in everyone's radar in the middle of August. They're both linked. Javi Guerra, the Valencia midfielder, who probably seems more destined to move to Italy, if I'm being fair with that. Those names have been linked with United. I think the idea that they're going to spend £50 million in January is a bit of a red herring. I don't think they've got that money to spend in the middle of the season, nor are they able to, by the report in the Daily Star, able to recall Rasmus Højlund from his loan spell at Napoli. He's doing quite well at Napoli, to be honest. You might think that he'd thrive in a system that's got a little bit more service. But there's no clause in his contract that says he can come back, apparently. So, and the Kobe Mainu rumours continue with Scott McTominay urging Napoli to sign him. Feels like a football manager kind of thing. But that's what the rumours are this morning. Anyway, Spurs 2, United 2. A couple of those rumours off the back of that, really, because United's injury problems in midfield and up front. So we'll talk about it. Crazy game. I always think, Paul, if you want a good barometer of where United and Spurs are in the middle of their respective transitions, which it feels like they've been in for a decade, both of them, is you watch the games against each other, and if one's calm and one is dealing with it in a professional way, then you think, all right, they're a bit further in front than the other, and they're maybe further along the way in their progression than the other one is. And as we saw with Spurs when they came to Old Trafford at the start of last season and they battered us and they won 3-0, it's probably the most polished the side's been for a long time in a head-to-head where you go like, okay, that looks like a team that's got its act together. Then when you watch what happened on Saturday, you think, well, it's a poor Premier League. United could have gone second. They were second at one point. It tells you a lot about the state of the league that for the second week in a row, even though United drew at Forest, they were still able to go momentarily second on Saturday, albeit in play. Obviously, it's got nothing to do with the results at the end of the day or anything like that, or what the league table says at the end of the day. But, there's a lot of space in there in the top part of the league, and where United and Spurs are currently sitting. But I think when you look at the state of the league, it tells you one story. When you look at United and Spurs against each other, it tells you probably the truth of the matter. Last season, we got to the Europa League final. The Europa League final, the second best competition in Europe, the second best showpiece game in Europe, and it was decided by a mistake in a very low quality game, which tells you everything about those teams from last season. It really does. And I think that you look at where they are this season, we've seen it again. Spurs, all right, they got out of jail with United sort of committing their own mistakes, really inviting Spurs back into the game, which they really didn't do anything to get back into, apart from United making changes that invited Spurs to come onto them and looked like they were going to get 3 points. United. We'll talk about whether or not it's a good character for United to come back and get the point in the end. But he does, Paul. I mean, when you look at the game in isolation and you look at the frantic chaos of it, you just think, if anything sums up these teams, it's that they've just been stuck in this kind of game for 10 years, and they've got at one point, one of them's got to pull themselves out of it and start looking like a proper outfit that can be taken seriously. Because as long as those kind of games happen, you know that they're just stuck in whatever cycle they've been in for a decade.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, when we talk about the two teams, it's when you look at it, they're the two glamour sides of the Premier League. I think we look at it media wise. That Spurs v Manchester United fixture is a big fixture. It's just one of those ones that people just want to watch at this moment in time. I think since the final last year, I think there's a lot of people who think hard about whether or not they want to watch it. And it seems a long, long way off from those years gone by when that game at White Hart Lane was always a big one. There was always something about it. There was great individuals, and they've come. Well, both of them are great teams in their own way.
Yeah.
But just seeing Spurs the week before when I was there again at White Hart Lane when they played Chelsea, I described it to people. I described it a very, very, very poor Chelsea up against a disgusting Spurs.
That's what you said on this podcast as well.
Yeah. That's how I summed it up, really. And I turned around and said that for United not to beat Spurs, you'd have to ask questions, and I really did believe that they was going to beat them. But at the end of it, you look at that game and you can look at United's good bits, and there was more good bits with United than what there were with Spurs.
Yeah.
Spurs good bits come from United, that's the thing that worries me about football, because I talk about a lot. I wonder if players are allowed to use their own initiative anymore. We're talking about systems, and yes, there is. I never heard that word system when I was playing. There was always a formation, a style of play.
Yeah.
But be honest now, they want to make it business. They want to keep it in a workplace. So they call it a system. So it worries me that players get caught up in it. And for that first 15, 20 minutes of that second half, I was watching a team that are 1-0 up, trying to play nice little patterns in and around that defending third. And they were getting, not through great closing down. You notice I use the word closing down. I don't use this pressing rubbish, because that's basketball. It's been in basketball since basketball started, but now we're trying to bring it in because we want to be American. That means more money for everybody, doesn't it? And Spurs didn't have to work hard. And Spurs only had, in theory, Spurs had a lot of, their midfield was just full of like semi-warriors, because there wasn't any creativity in there. They were semi-warriors. And they were nicking it off the toes with poor decisions with players to hold on to it. Bruno got caught in possession 3 times on the bounce, trying to dribble his way out, throwing his arms up at people because he was dribbling and gets caught with it. And Spurs, and all of a sudden, and I still always remember it, it's factual in football, but I just remember it for Sir Alex, never give the away fans a crumb.
Mm.
And if you grab something from them, don't give it back to them too quick, because it's just going to help those players. If those fans and you're away from home come at you and they're at you off the pitch, they're digging you out. And while I'm sitting there and I'm hearing Spurs Spurs doing a little bit, not with great football, off the back of United's mistakes. And I'm there and I'm hearing it all going and I'm talking away and I'm saying it's all going to go wrong. It's going to go wrong. They're going to concede. And then it eased off because they took the pressure off and they started going a little bit behind, which is common sense. Too late and bang, it's 1-1. And then you start fearing the worst and really what's going to come on next. And as we know, everyone will have their opinion about it. Wayne, maybe I'm going too far, but anyway, that was my bit. There was United good, decent first half. It was batting and bowling. Who was better? There was more quality with United in the first half on an attacking basis. They were going very well, and Bono was doing really well. Cunha was working hard, but Casemiro was, from my opinion, the focal point of most of it. Just playing with his head, playing with his head, his positional sense and things like that. Where to lend the ball, and they go in at half time 1-0 up. Spurs get booed off again after from a week after last time I heard them getting booed off, and you think to yourself everything's in control, and what I said earlier is what happens in that from that second half onwards.
Yeah, I mean, the second half, I thought, I mean, they made good inroads early on. I think that what they thought was, look at United last week, they were vulnerable after half time, so Spurs sort of stepped up. It couldn't have been much worse. I mean, the only shot on target for either side in the first half was the goal. And we'll talk about United's good moments in a moment. I just want to get through the sort of crappy bits. So they have a moment or two, force Lomans into a couple of good saves. So United react. And I don't know if this is an indication of Amarim's boldness. I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt and think so, but I still think that there's an element of him there that he's just not. Either he's not familiar with the qualities of his squad, or that he's so persistent with the system or formation or the style that he'll just make the changes regardless because he's still favouring the approach over getting the result. Because I just thought at one point the result was good because we were winning. The performance was all right. We were just after half time. We were navigating a difficult moment. Why would you bring on this? When you look at the options that Spurs have got from the bench, the obvious one was going to be Udogie because of his spit, the pace that he's got on the left. Why would you bring on Ahmad in that situation when you know that that was a weak spot that they would be looking to exploit from what happened last week? And then also when, all right, you don't have a great midfield battle in there. Like you said, Spurs had Warriors, United were treading water basically because the combination is never going to be good between Casemiro and Bruno. But like you said, Casemiro, probably his experience was carrying us through that. And he wasn't brilliant, but you could see the value of his experience in a difficult midfield. And when you bring him off and you put Ugarte on, and all right, in general play, Ugarte was poor anyway, but the error for the goal is so basic that he's to be 5 yards off. I mean, there's a literal saying of being yards off the pace. To be literally 5 yards behind everyone else to allow that second goal. Both goals came from, what I'm trying to say, both goals came from decisions that the manager made where he's gone, all right, this is the influence I'm going to have on the game. And these are decisions that he makes repeatedly. He's done them week after week. Either if it's starting Ahmad, you don't have a problem with that because it's adventurous, right? You go, all right, Ahmad and Mbumo, you know why he's doing it. They've got a good combination there. So you don't fault him for being brave. But when you're in a winning position, you bring something on that's going to make us vulnerable. I just don't understand the logic between either of those because you were basically also inviting errors into the team because Ugarte makes errors. Ahmad is going to not an error, but he's not going to be in the positions you want him to be, like Mazraoui would be. And all right, we had some injuries, we had some issues with that, and you can argue the toss over whether or not Casemiro can last a full game. But when you've seen repeatedly the cost of bringing Casemiro off and putting Ugarte on, why would you continue to do it? I do feel like those two decisions, and the others as well. You know, bringing on Sesko and him immediately getting injured, and he looked off the pace anyway. I'm not going to attribute that to him getting injured or anything like that, but he looked sluggish. You're changing the dynamic of the game that you had when you were comfortably winning it into one that you're throwing it into that kind of jeopardy that this game provides, and then you get the jeopardy, you invite the jeopardy and you get it, and the chaos that comes with it. I mean, I just don't think that that's strong game management.
It's not. The substitutions were poor, they weren't needed. And I have to say, what I mean, I've said this before. What's wrong? A team got themselves out of trouble in a way, the trouble that they caused by trying to play their way out. Everyone's in this mindset of got to pass the ball. I can't go long because everyone's going to call me a hoofer. And the way every Spurs player, any team that are chasing you and they're pinning you in, you turn them round and you run them the other way, especially when you've got Cunha and you've got an Embueno on the pitch. They will go the other way. They'll do their graft, but they're willing to run the other side. So you think, right, you've got something that you never had last season.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant for you. Let's just do that for a while. Tell the fullbacks, the wing backs, tell your centre halves when they're caught out in wide areas sometimes and they retrieve, just pull it into the corner. I'll tell you what, that was something back from my Fulham days when I was playing at Fulham, right back, and the person who I put as one of the quite up front in my old career was Ray Hartford. And Ray Hartford always used to say, if in doubt, put it behind the fullback. Let the centre forward run out into the channels. And when I say that, that ball was always one that Mark Hughes loved.
Yeah.
Just pull it in behind the fullback, that little tram line, just on the edge of the box, and the touchline. Pull it in there, and at the worst, if the defender's quick, he'll get there in front. But you pin him in, and you force him, you make him face his own goal.
Yeah.
And then you squeeze up. Basic, but that's football. Football's easy, but it's been so over complicated by people who want to sound clever because they feel that's the best way of everyone to take notes of them. If you use basic words and talk in a basic language, people will respect you for it because that means you understand football, because football is such a simple game. It's been made complicated by money people. So I'm seeing that going on. I think, so why are you making those substitutions? The bonus of United, and it's a negative, what happened at the end of the season, but they've got no European football. If Casemiro can't play for 90 minutes, get rid of him. He's not a footballer. If you can't play 90 minutes of football, what good are you? You can't. What's that? It's like turning around and saying, "Well, you're in a factory, you're working on a line, you're on a conveyor belt. Oh, we can't work past 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He gets tired. Oh, go home. We'll bring someone else in. But he's younger than you. He's on more money than you, though. But still, we'll do that for you. No. If that person can't do his time, then you get someone else who can do that time. Oh, Casemiro, well, he's 30 something. He's 30 something. I guarantee you, Casemiro will be going out jogging up until he's 50 odd years of age because it's in his head.
The other thing as well with that is a 2-week international break.
Yeah.
And what can't a tired Casemiro do that a fully fit Agarte? What is a fully fit Agarte better at than a half-fit Casemiro? He's not. You'd still rather have the half-fit Casemiro, wouldn't you? I just don't.
Oh, yeah, but the thing about it as well, Wayne, is that I see teams that are winning games. Arsenal did it the weekend. Arsenal are sitting there. They're going to go Stadium Light, and they're going to be. If they go there, and I hate saying it, but that would have been an impressive result for Arsenal to go and win the Stadium Light.
Yeah.
Given everything that's thrown at you, the whole thing, the crowd, it would have been impressive. But what does the manager decide to do? Because they have to be clever so they can have something to talk about post. They need something clever. I've done this and I've done that. He went and put another centre half on. So they went to 3 at the back, and everyone goes, oh, great defensive. Oh. No, what you're doing is that means you're relinquishing something going forward. So what happens then? Sunderland put an extra man up front, and then they squeeze on because you've taken off somebody who was pressing forward.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it allows that person who's being pushed back to step on. And that's what happens. Now, the gaffer wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
If you got that, the gaffer would have just gone bang. He would have gone the other way. You don't just bring someone in. If you've got 2 sous chefs and they're doing a great job, why do you have a third? when the two are doing fine, a third, we can get more, a little bit more production out of it by having a third. No, the problem is they start fighting over equipment. Oh no,
Yeah.
no, I'm doing that, but no, then
Yeah.
they're unorganised. So no, Arsenal made a mistake. Well, we know that they made a mistake in what they're doing. It was totally, totally wrong. So if Casemiro can't last 90 minutes, and if we ask, does anyone ask the player? But even if his legs are gone. Feeble excuse, easy excuse for anyone to say in today's world, his legs are going. He's 30. Come on. Someone said that about you and said, oh, your legs are gone. You'd want to knock him out. You would do. Your male ego, you'll go, oh, no, I'm not having that. And you want to go longer. That's the whole thing. Having that inside you saying, I can keep going longer and longer and longer. You see everybody breathing heavy. The moment they're breathing, oh, you're tired. But no, that's just the adrenaline and everything going with it. Your desire and passion to keep going. You wouldn't have done that to a Roy Keane or a Paul Ince. Oh,
No.
you're looking tired. Come off. The moment you'd say those few words, you're looking tired. Wow, straight away their brain would get into action. And that's why you have pre-season training. So your mind can just take over your body, and the mind is telling your body how it feels, and it's saying you are going to keep going.
Yeah.
And Casemiro, even if it has gone in that way, he would still be a presence. That's what I was alluding to about taking key personnel off. The moment those Spurs players saw Casemiro go,
Yeah.
5 Champions League medals, whatever, they're kind of going, wow. And then you bring on Ugarte, who sometimes, in a way, looks like a football version of a trap. His socks are down there, he's everything, and he hasn't got the presence of a Casemiro. It's amazing, Wayne, as a presence makes. Certain players, certain people walking somewhere, and you'll go, oh, it just does it. It could be they just got that. Casemiro has that, and when you take someone like him off, it's like a red rag to a bull to certain things. Oh, they think they've won it, have they? Oh, they think they've done it, taken off their best players.
Yeah.
No, if you've got the right temperament in your team, the right personnel, right, they go, we'll have some of that. Let's go and embarrass them.
Yeah.
Maybe Richarlison went a bit far, by the way. That shirt off, he's got to stop that. Every time he takes a shirt off, the opponent score.
Yeah. Hey, no, it's everyone likes a little bit of karma. I mean, karma seems a bit strong, but he was like, yeah, giving it the big one, like you can expect. But you made the point there, and you're exactly right. But the other thing, the very basic thing to look at from this season, just the trend is United have been poor in those areas. They've been poor when Ugarte is on. They concede a lot of goals when Ugarte is on because of the errors that he makes, or at least he contributes in the areas. And you've got a lot of space there to attack where Ahmad is going to leave you space to attack, especially when you make 2 changes there. We knew that Spurs were going to bring Udogie on because he's got the pace to get in that area. So why give them the option that was causing United problems last week? You basically gave them 2 for 1 in that area and 3 for 1 when you brought Ugarte on there. And I just think the game management there, he should understand his squad better than that. And I understand that really this season's about progress from a mentality viewpoint, but I think the manager still got to get the results.
He's got to win games, Wayne. It's as simple. And to go and beat Spurs, it's still a big win, regardless of performances or where Spurs are, whatever. It's still a big win. He has to win games of football, and you'll end up losing. You lose certain players. Certain players within that team will suddenly just keep doing that all the time. They will look around and they will question the manager because in your own mind, we've all done it. Every player, doesn't matter, will turn around and if you ask them a question privately, what gets you? What substitution would get you? What player coming on would bother you when you're in a really good position? We've all got it. You go from kids football, under 8s, 9s, when all of a sudden the manager feels he's got to keep certain parents happy. They put their son on. They put someone on when they think the game's safe, and all of a sudden the other players will go, oh, but still they just get and it works all the way through up into the pro game. So you can imagine some of those players are out there, maybe someone like a Delit or somebody up there would just go, oh, let's go. Especially when a good player comes off, you look at it and you'll go, why? Why is the manager? Why is he doing it? And I just think he's got something in his head, something going on systematic where he feels he's got to give players time on the pitch. He's got to give them. And I look at it. If you think about the teams I played in and thereafter the great Manchester United team, you will turn up at OT, Wayne, and you would know in your own heart what your starting 11 was.
Yeah.
You knew it because the boss loved it. And I say this word, I've said it a million times: continuity. He didn't care so much about opponents knowing what he was doing. He just knew that what he had was always going to be good enough to beat that team.
Yeah.
Couldn't guarantee it, but he knew that they were going to be good enough, and he didn't like making changes in that way because he wanted people to get to know each other. And
Yeah.
that's why I keep on about the three at the back, the important area, which is improved because of what's happened up front. But the three at the back should play together almost every single game.
Yeah.
Only injuries would affect it, but let them play, especially this season when there is no midweek games. Let them play. Let them get to know each other. And so, and I'm watching all the warming up before game and it's in threes, and I thought to myself, you haven't really got to do that if you have a normal back three. I saw a full scale training session. What goes on now in these warm ups? It's embarrassing. It's unnecessary. You've had a week and they're still going out there practicing going backwards and forwards. And one of the million coaches out there, because there's as many coaches out there as what there is, there's 11 coaches out on the pitch. It's absolutely amazing. 11, 11, 22 plus 22 plus the subs. Christ, that's a lot of players in one half. And they're throwing the ball up in the air and they're doing headers. And you think, why? Surely their memories are better than that they don't need reminding on the day of a game how to head a ball, toss it in the air. It's just, I'm going off on one here. I'm going to stop.
No, but it reminds me when I'm sure we did it when we were practicing the corner routines, that we were practicing defending a corner routine in one of the training sessions last season. And I think we conceded from a corner in the game. And I'm like, what? I just don't understand. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I see the point in some warm-ups. I think warm-ups are there for a reason. It's just that the full sort of like tactical debrief that happens 20 minutes before a match, it's like, come on, yeah. And then when you see everything fall into chaos as they did, and you're right about the consistency in defence. So let's talk about the good points first of all. United's first goal, very much like Forest's first last week with Gibbs White with the header. They targeted Ahmad last week, and this week we targeted Porro and Bumo getting in there. Nice header. No real challenge in there, so good persistence from United in the attacking area to fashion that goal, but Spurs were quite static defensively. It's the character for the equaliser really that is the thing for me. Delate had been really good playing on the right hand side of defence. You should, like you were saying, put him in the middle, just build a defence around him. He's been United's rock in that area. Everyone knows he's been impressive this season. He's really coming on. So just keep him there where you're building around him. He still played well, and obviously came up with the goods at the end. Helped a little bit, I think, by Lomans coming up, especially considering we went down to 10 men. I think Lomans did help in that situation. His presence, at least, allowed Delite to be unmarked at the back post and scored with the header. I mean, the one thing we've got to talk about, because United, we said they might have lost that game last week. They would have definitely lost that. Might have lost last week's game last season. But they definitely would have lost in those circumstances last season, conceding in the last minute in injury time. I mean, we don't need to talk about Agate again. It was just so basic. But good character from United to come back and actually keep going to get that other chance, because you never know what's going to happen with United or in any game of football, to keep going till the whistle. And I think that's, if we're going to take anything positive out of that, the first half an hour, I think it's difficult because we've played two games that we should have won away from home, I think, because the turmoil that those sides have been in. I think we've given them hope, which we should have knocked the stuffing out of. A good team would have done that. We're not there yet, but we are there to at least get the equaliser. And I think that's a good sign, right? It's a good sign that we kept going and at least got a result from the game.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I think the draw worked out all right. But I mean, I was around that stadium for quite a while, just seeing a few people who I knew and that had plenty of time to hang about. So there was no point in me going home. And there was a big, big disappointment from Spurs' side of it. Not that they thought they deserved it or they were better. It was just the fact of them getting a home win.
Yeah.
And it would have been a big, big home win, beating Manchester United, regardless of the levels of where United are. It's still a big win because at the end of it, people just see a few years or a year and more down the line of Spurs beating Manchester United 2-1. People wouldn't even talk about the levels they're at.
Mm.
And so there was just that disappointment of losing. So and I was actually with a lot of their ex players after the game, and that was their way. There wasn't no visceral argument or anything. That was their way. That was their way of looking at it. They're realists in that way. So I just look at it and think that there's still so much more to give, and there's only just those little things that are just missing to make it slightly better. And the thing about it, it's only a small margin that is needed now to go and be in the Champions League.
Yeah.
The way that I'm only talking about this season. I'm not talking in the bigger scale of it, but saying that the way football's going at the moment, I don't know where it's going to at this moment. Football, I just don't know the way things are panning out, the way teams are playing, and what's going on. We don't really know, but at this moment in time, if you're looking at it, and maybe other teams are saying the same, is if there's going to be any changes that happen, it has to be in the middle of the park. And what you said at the top of this about the players, and if there was one player, well, the one that makes sense to me, and you mentioned about money, is a loan deal for Conor Gallagher.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's not playing. He's not playing at the moment. He's sitting on the bench. I was with his dad in Germany at the Euros. Ended up in the same restaurant. My first night I arrived there, ended up sitting there, and I got a tap on the shoulder, and it was his dad. His dad coming just chatting away, and the way Connor is, and Connor actually didn't want to leave Chelsea. Didn't want to leave. The whole family of Chelsea fans and things like that, and it's just by his dad's manner, the way his dad is. His dad loves his football, but he's not busy. His dad is all about his son doing what he wants to do, and just watching Conor Gallagher play. He's running with the ball, and he runs without the ball. He never stops running, and and how much his educational wise of football. How good is it now after being out of Atletico Madrid under someone like Simeone?
Yeah.
The discipline side of him. I just think, because when he was mentioned during the summer, I thought he's got to get that will do. And I just think someone like him in there would make a massive difference. Big difference. It would add that little bit of physicality with a massive work ethic, but with good technical ability as well, because everyone knows he can score a goal.
Yeah. In many respects, not a million miles away to what we've got with Mason Mount, who was sort of come in more of an engine than Mount. I'm talking about that he fits what the manager's looking for. You can imagine a role for him in that system. It's funny though, you mentioned that. I mean, the distance between what United are at the moment in a Champions League place, and it might well come down to the manager's decisions if you look at it. Like taking off Casemiro in a couple of games when United are in control, being too bold. I mean, we all like an attacking United manager. I mean, going back to Tommy Docherty, you look at him and you go like, that can't work really, but it did work. Would it have worked enough? You need some pragmatism in there to be a championship winning manager. And United need that pragmatism now. And just because Agate is more defensive doesn't mean he's the right fit for that role. And we'll talk a little bit more about who could have come on instead in a second, but we'll just clear up the Benjamin Sesko injury. It looked like he came off with a thigh injury at first, but it looks like he's done his knee. It might be a serious one. I think we're going to find out the start of this week if it's an ACL or something like that. It didn't look good when he came off. He looked, like I said, I thought he looked sluggish anyway. He wasn't playing well. So I don't know if he was already struggling with an injury. United have tried that approach in Anfield, and it worked with Cunha through the middle, and it was working again on Saturday. I mean, it wasn't brilliant. It wasn't massively vibrant, but that's the point in these big away games, or games that are treated as big away games, that you have more dynamism in the front three, and it doesn't really matter if you don't have a totem pole striker in there, as long as the three attackers are three good attackers, and that's what we had. But it is nonetheless a concern, because Sesko, I don't think he's been that bad. I think he's growing into his role a little bit like obviously very different styles of play and very different styles of playing the team as well. But a little bit, it took Andy Cole a few months to sort of really sort of fit into what the United system was. I'm seeing that with Sesko in more than I did with Hoyland or Xerxes, where it looked like oil on water sometimes. This looks like he'll fit. It's just taking its time to get in there, but he didn't on Saturday. It looked like he was, honestly, half 12 kickoff. It looked like he just got out of bed. He was that slow and sort of cumbersome. Gets the injury. The injury is a concern, right, Paul? Because, I mean, I'm not saying he's been perfect and he wasn't good in the few minutes he was on the pitch on Saturday, but if you don't have him there, then you're going back to Sesko and then you're calling on Obi from the bench again. Oh, sorry, you're going back to Xerxes, sorry. Putting Xerxes on the bench, putting him as the starting player in there if you're not going to have Cunha through the middle. And, when United are already looking at the options that they've got in January and Bumo's going to be at the AFCON, Ahmad's going to be there as well, it is a little bit of a concern, right, that we've left ourselves that thin.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to, people will start talking. I think by the time it get into the back end of this month and December, people then will be looking at United and kind of think they're going to be a bit threadbare, to be honest. And the saving grace has been the signings, really. Though Bruno's been a key signing. So, and you look at Ahmed as well, what he gives. If you're talking about numbers with system that they want to talk about, then you're trying to say maybe not that good. But you look at for 90 minutes and you watch a player and you can see the issues that he causes opponents when he gets on the ball in that last third. They'll they won't be looking at numbers. They'll be actually talking about the individual when he's got that ball and the problems he causes around. And that's the thing that matters. So it is going to be a worry. I don't know how they're going to go about it. We're seeing a lot of Wilcox talking on podcasts and things like that now. Didn't see him around when we're losing games. Never saw him. It's absolutely amazing. But I'm just waiting for how they've actually sorted that one. So I'm assuming they've got a plan for that situation, because it could go back. I think we could almost call it normality, couldn't we, at the moment, the way United had been previous to this season in certain ways. So it is a big concern. It needs something in January for them to do something, because if you're going to go that light and those games that they miss, they're kind of the games that are the ones that you think if you was full strength, you'd go there and you'd get a great chance of getting, maximum out of them ones if everything was right. But again, many teams can say that. So it's one of them you have to wait and see what happens next. But it's about now getting as many points in the bag now between now and then. Otherwise, it could be a bit of a concern.
You've not got a League Cup in there to get those minutes for young players as well. So I would expect between now and January, I would expect a little bit of squad time for Shea Lacey, the right-sided forward in the under-21s, who's been in really good form since coming back from his injury. Obi should get some more minutes as well. I think he was relied upon a little bit too much last season, but give him his a little time out, put him back in now. Maybe there'll be something in there. We'll see. United have got to find the numbers from somewhere, and those are the most obvious prospects from within. One little thing as well, while we're talking about youth players, just before we close today, we'll talk about this youth record that was endangered on Saturday because Kobbie Mainoo was injured. We were talking earlier about the decisions the manager's been making. You never know with the ability. I'm not questioning or disputing Kobbie's injury at all, but sometimes, if a player is being called upon all the time, they make themselves available all the time. And if Kobbie didn't think he was getting a chance, maybe there was not. I shouldn't be saying that because I don't really dispute the nature of his injury. What I am disputing is that United had nothing left from the academy after that, apart from Jack Fletcher, who got called upon to one of Darren's twins. He's called upon, put on the bench, and Jack, he's a youth international at England level, highly rated. Nothing saying that he's not deserving of a call up into the senior pool at all. But Amrin was talking before the game. He was saying, "Oh well, this record is bulletproof. It's not going to change under us." And this is what I was talking about at the start of the season when we were saying about what's important about this record. What's important about this record is the attitude and the commitment towards developing young players. If that's not there, the record doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a token just to put a player on the bench. United, like in these options over the last couple of years, and this isn't all on Amorim, but this is let's call this the post Solskjaer era. And I know that there were some games where was it a Europa or a Champions League game where Ollie just put loads of kids in. Now, that was probably a token game, but I thought all the other times they were doing it under Ollie, and everyone before, I think maybe a couple of times under Jose, you thought, I don't know if he's taking this as seriously. But the record's been treated seriously up until Eric Ten Hag in the first team. I'm not saying that he's not taken the record seriously, but I feel like there was a disconnect at some point in the Van Gaal era when Nicky Butt came in, oversaw head of academy, and then Nick Cox came in. So no one can question the direction at that level or its capability to develop players, because we've been developing the players. We've won the Youth Cup at that level, so the players have been there to at least get a chance, and they've had chances. 2 of them scored the last time we won a trophy, 2 of them from the Youth Cup team as well. So that part of it, we're doing great. But the pathway into the first team, when you look at Alvaro Fernandez, who's Carreras now goes by, and he plays for Real Madrid, scoring great goals and playing very well. They were saying he was too lightweight to get a chance. That's why we got Sergio Reguilon in to play at left back. And I remember being on this podcast and we were going, I can't believe that that's happened. Why not just Reguilon played 12 games for United? Was it not worth giving Fernandez those 12 games just to see if he was as lightweight as everyone was saying? We've got to give him that opportunity to sink or swim. There was countless other players who would be in that situation before. Darmian was a roadblock to players getting chances. Borthwick Jackson was a decent fullback who didn't get the chances he deserved because of that. We've got other players in there as well. Remember the Van Gaal era? Fosu Mensah came through. I know that he was a signing, but he was playing through the academy, and he was counts as an academy product. He was doing so well, and then didn't get the chance. I knew we were playing in midfield at that time. Schneiderlin, Schweinsteiger, but definitely Schneiderlin. The player just wasn't good enough to go in there. And then we signed Matic and we signed Pogba. And all right, those players were senior players at United and they played a fair amount of times. But Fosu Mensah had such an immense breakthrough that you would have thought, just stick with these players. The value, I'll stick by this. He got injured. He was injury prone. I would have seen better value in Fosu Mensah developing in that trajectory that he was in the short amount of times that he played than the stability that even what Matic brought. And he was a capable player. There was a dynamism within Fosu Mensah that made him more electric as a player that I would have said I would have preferred to have seen him develop as a player. United are in that situation now where not only it's a catch-22 for Amorim, where he's providing the roadblock himself because Ugarte is getting games where Mainu should be getting them. That much is clear to everyone who's watching, and there are other players in there as well. We're not going to argue. There's no point arguing because he's proven himself to be right over bringing in Cunha and Mbeumo over Rashford and Garnacho and Sancho. Sancho not part of the youth argument, but in terms of developing the team, no arguments there because that's immediately improved the side. But there are still players within that academy there. Shea Lacey, who could develop into a striker. We talked to Aidan Evan, yes, a signing, but still classing as an academy. He's part of that production line, not part of the official number of thing. But the point being that you are providing that roadblock yourself to players like Luke Shaw. What is he giving? I'm not saying he's not playing of a capable standard, that there aren't. What I'm saying is, are we not better off giving those minutes to Aidan Heaven at this point? Why are we not giving those minutes to him when we don't have the League Cup? Why are those minutes not being given to these players? I just don't understand it. So if you then say before a game, this record's bulletproof, and all you've done is put Jack Fletcher on the bench because the record's going to go, that doesn't say to me that you're taking it as seriously as the record demands that you do, because otherwise the whole attitude would have been different all season. I don't think it. You can't stand there on the parapet, put your head above the parapet, and say we put Jack Fletcher in the squad, so that means that we're taking this seriously. I don't know. I feel like this season more than any other, that it doesn't feel like we're taking it as seriously as we should be. Am I just ranting into the abyss there, Paul? Have I got a point?
No, I won't. No, I mean you have said it. I mean I found it strange when I'm there and I try to think as a player and how he's feeling, and all of a sudden I think I would be feeling like I'm going to get sarcastic remarks from some of my mates and things like that. That oh, you was only there just to keep a record going.
Yeah,
In that way, in certain. But you're just a token in that way because you hadn't been involved before, and all of a sudden, bang, you're in. That's the way it's going to be construed by a lot of people. They are looking in that way. People will be throwing up their own little quips about the way it's happened because he just hasn't been around before. So it seems like a last minute thing.
yeah,
I think he's been grabbed. Amarin's been grabbed by somebody, i.e., Wilcox or somebody saying you've got to do this now that Mainu's out. You can't do that. But someone maybe have to grab hold of him and say you've got a little bit look further down the line and like what you mentioned there about Agate and say, what does he give you that Mainu can't give you? What is it he's got, the difference? And there is nothing between them. I liked him when he first came in because he added something. He added someone who had a willingness to try and get around the park, but struggled hard to do it. But he showed a willingness, which is more than a lot of them, but he just hasn't got it there. While you give the ball to Mainu, if you brought on Mainu, if he'd have been available, I should say, and you put him on against Spurs, you wouldn't have got that. You would have got from the moment he got on, he would have gone onto that pitch, he would have been polished, and then he'd have got the ball and he would have been immaculate in what he'd done. And the first thing that Goldie said, he would have been absolutely immaculate. With things going like that, he would have just watched it, relax, calm, bang. And it's that easy. And it's that easy for me to see. I think it's that easy for you and everyone else out there. And it's not a bias, as everyone will say, not a bias towards because he's come through the academy. It's because he's a good player and he's proven that on countless occasions. And that's why he got taken to Euros and played more minutes than he ever expected anyone else, deservedly so. But all of a sudden, he isn't doing good enough or can't play in a system. But every time I keep seeing that lad come on, he comes on and he looks comfortable and one of the better players, as I saw in the Derby game, the Manchester Derby. So what is it? And as I said before, it has only to be an issue with the manager.
Yeah,
it's the only way it can be, which is a shame really, because it's a talent and he isn't doing what thankfully what the others have done and wants to shout and scream. He's doing it the right way, but the lad needs to play football. He can't go and lose everything because he isn't being allowed to play. And all he wants to do is play.
I would have gone even further than what. If you're going to go in on Jack Fletcher, go all in and bring him on instead of Agate. Say, trust him to do the job that Agate has proven that he can't do. I just don't see the sense in any of that. And it's just, for me, then, just don't have him in then. That would be my answer to that, because let the record break. Let the record break, because you've not taken it seriously enough to go. What you're actually saying at this moment in time is that the need at this present moment is more pressing. And I get that. Like, it was never 100% perfect under Sir Alex as well. I mean, people forget that the team that you were in that finally won the title had Hughesy in, but he'd gone away and come back. Had Giggs in. Clayton on the periphery, but he was going out. You wouldn't class him as a first teamer. Lee Sharp gets mentioned as an academy product, but he was signed in. So you've got three players there. And Gary Walsh, who was often on the bench if Les wasn't available. So not a great amount of players, and those players could have been dropped. My point, I'm not saying that Ferguson was ever negligent of the academy. What I'm trying to say is that at certain times, it ebbs and flows. So you're not going to have 6 or 7 in the squad. You're going to have 2 or 3. But if those 2 or 3 are there, they're making a significant contribution. And if you've just got one who's just there to sit on the bench to keep the record going, that's a misnomer. You are actually lying to what that record is supposed to represent. Just cut the cord of the record, because what your era currently represents is we are bringing in more established players because we don't trust the kids, even though the kids have proven themselves to be good enough. And what the actual cause of the problem is, too many average players who've come in, like Ugarte, who have proven to be roadblocks for players like Menu. And that's a problem that's still happening. If you put in Jack Fletcher on the bench and you're saying that the record keeps going, I don't know. I think you're contradicting yourself and you're contradicting what that record's supposed to be. I'd rather just see it end. And I know people think, I know the way that sounds because of what I write about the club and its identity and how I feel with it. But I just feel like you're taking the mick out of it. If you're not respecting it in the way that it should be respected, then cut the cord of it and allow someone else to pick up the baton where they respect what it stands for. You can't come out and say it's bulletproof when you're not respecting it in the way that it should be. That's all. And as I've ranted there, it does mean something to me though, because it's the football club that I support. It's one of the big reasons why I support them, is things like that, and big connections that we've had. One of the biggest cheers that we had in years was Cobby scoring the equaliser against Lyon last season in the Champions League, in the Europa League. And it was Cobby just breaking through and doing something in an attacking position which wasn't familiar to him. You had Cobby in there who was breaking ground and doing things like he would definitely do all the things that you want Ugarte to do. And like you said, I love that word, immaculate on the ball. And yeah, all right, he's not always perfect. Like there was a game a few weeks ago when I can't remember off the top of my head where he came on and he didn't look very good. But I mean, those things are going to happen when you are not giving him the chance to do the detail. That would be the commitment to the project, or the thing that you've stepped into, the legacy, is detailing Cobby with all those responsibilities and giving him the chance to do it, rather than giving Ugarte the chance to do it. Words and actions are different things, and they can talk there all they want. I just want to see that more meaningful action with there. And obviously the statement with Cobby is it's not all his responsibility. We go back to the other managers, like we just said with the Real Madrid fullback Carreras. It is something that goes back to different managers. It goes back generationally. I just think if you're talking about the record, you're talking about the legacy, and you understand what it means, start acting more like it, because there's opportunities to do that rather than just putting Jack Fletcher on the bench. It doesn't, like you said, doesn't do Jack any favours unless you're actually playing him. Anyway, that's it for this week. That's enough moaning to last us for a fortnight, because there's international football next week. So hopefully Dave will be out of bed by the time that we're back on the podcast next time. And that is previewing Everton, I think, which should be fun if I've not got my games wrong this time. And we'll actually be previewing that because it's on the Monday night, isn't it? So that's how good United are at this moment in time. They're playing Monday night football. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, guys, this week. Sorry for boring Paul into submission for the last 5-6 minutes while I was on my soapbox. We both had a little bit of a soapbox this week. Have a great day, guys. Have a great week, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk about that game against Everton. Hopefully with some fit players back in the team as well.